existing amongst us, within, and all around us is a life-creating and sustaining, universal energy, similar to Eastern religion's concept of the one that is neither a creator or deity. This energy has inherent and unchanging mechanisms throughout all living and non-living things. It is perhaps possible this force even sparked or was the drive behind the creation of the universe and all things within. From this force flows transcendence, a self-organizing pattern, or in other words, evolution. In this case, evolution simply means change. Everything changes, or has changed, throughout its lifetime. A lifetime in this instance could be from a simple pitch wavelength, decaying plutonium, pond scum, a reptile, a mammal, an ecosystem, a planet, a star, a galaxy, a lonely ice rock in the depths of space, and even the depths themselves. Everything has this energy flowing through and from it. Life on Earth, as in microbes, plants, insects, animals, and mankind, has evolved or transcended from primordial pools due to the omnipresent and omnipotent nature of this force. Its automatic and organizing properties, like thermodynamics, along with several other seemingly chance opportunities from astronomy to environmental biology, have, overall, propelled animate life throughout hellacious eras on Earth. Mankind is this universal energy manifested in an evolution-enhanced body, capable of realizing, contemplating, questioning and understanding itself, his existence, and the existence of all that is around him. Natural selection has been the method of transcendence for millennia, and still is. Not so much for mankind. We are the next level of transcendence and self-organization. This does not mean, however, that we are divinely created masters of the planet. Where humanity often gets confused is with the emergence of morality and ethics. This too can be explained by the pro-evo principle, feelings of happiness, comfort, respect, love, etc. Basically all things good, provide life-promoting or pro-evolutionary qualities to life. On the other hand, objects, subjects, feelings or actions that are considered bad or evil are thusly anti-evo against life: murder, envy, rape, guilt, arrogance. The concept of good and evil do not exist outside of the constructs of our minds, so it is ultimately up to us to decide what is pro and anti-evo, and how to appropriately respond. I hold the belief that archaic religions were initially created and maintained, to modern religion, to hold a commonplace and ethical grounds for human morality and also to explain mysteries like natural disasters, life and death, and questions like why are we here? Why are we different? Basically, religion has been a tool used for the insight of the transcendental future and as a coping mechanism for pre-scientific thought and theory, as in mysticism. I uphold the position that one does not need religion to be spiritual, let alone to have an outstanding moral code. Karl Marx argued that religion numbed people to the injustices of the world. He wrote, "Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of the heartless world and the soul of soulless conditions." It is the opium of the people. I do not completely agree with Marx to the extent of it numbing people to injustices. Many religions focus on helping people who have been unjustly treated or victims of natural disaster, abuse, poverty, so on and so forth. However, I do believe that religion has oppressed humanity's ambitions and progression, especially to the tune of the Dark Ages, and even more recently, stem cell research, for example. An individual's religion has influence over essentially every part of their lives. Nevertheless, the vast majority of religious people lead humdrum lives of unspectacular but faithful practice in an earthbound and uninspired context. At the turn of the last century, 77% of Americans believed in a life after death, and that percentage has increased since 1944. So many people focusing on their perspective of the end and their means to get to the individual transcendental future heaven. I personally don't believe in a heaven or hell. The ideology seems cruel to me for reasons I will not venture into. The religious beliefs in an afterlife, sin as the human predicament, or an almighty creator are illogical and outdated. They detract from current life goals and potential, not for everyone, mostly the pious and extremists, then in turn affecting the innocent, child baptisms and suicide bombing victims. The belief in an Abrahamic transcendental future is given too much weight in our culture and the worldview. It is a coping mechanism for the realities of death and mystery. Not a very healthy coping skill, in my opinion. However, transcendence is still possible for mankind, just not in the nonsensical religious salvation meaning. Transcendence is the only real alternative to extinction. Extinction is the real human predicament. It is manifested in and pontificated by our intellectual dilemmas like arrogance, selfishness, greed, violence, excessive egos. That is the Hindu and Buddhist perspective of our predicament. It is also not necessary for religion to be inculcated into our perspective of a transcendental future. The great law of the Iroquois states, in every deliberation, we must consider the impact on the seventh generation, even if it requires having skin as thick as the bark of a pine. It is my strong belief that we must someday leave this planet if we want mankind to truly thrive, exist, and transcend for more than a mere blink of a geological eye. We must think to our future generations, our kin and beyond, to know they will carry our legacies, history, culture, and knowledge with them to the new Zion. Basically, our individuality ourselves can only be carried on to any life after this one by our children, grandchildren and ad infinitum. My views conflict with religions that see Earth as a special place in between heaven and hell. But how will humanity, especially the religious, respond to undeniable scientific evidence of life beyond Earth? We may discover other life forms amongst the stars much before mankind discovers a way to transcend beyond the stars. Everything will change. Not least of all, our philosophies and religions will need to incorporate the new information. Sin is not built into the fabric of space and time. Extraterrestrials might not need redemption, thus they would have no need for Christianity. The Baha'i faith have a view of the universe that has no bias for, or against the Earth as a special place, or humans as a special sentient species. The principles of the Baha'i faith unifying society, abandoning prejudice, equalizing opportunities for all people, eliminating poverty are all about humans on Earth. These principles are all pro-evo and would boost our transcendence through the generations. On the other hand, a new planet to harbor life for future man would likely be light years from Mecca. The Quran reads, "Whatever beings there are in the heavens and the earth do prostrate themselves to Allah, would they?" Why would we have reason to believe that any life could survive on a distant planet as we conceived the two? In National Geographic's July 2014 issue, the main article is "The Search for Life Beyond Earth." It is an article worth checking out. However, I will summarize it without too much scientific jargon. NASA is currently contemporizing plans to Mars and also constructing a satellite probe to travel and drill into Europa, an ice-covered moon of Jupiter. It is roughly the size of our moon, but contains as much water as the Earth. The logical backing that I'm interested in from this article is the life that scientists have discovered at extremes we never thought possible. Microbes in frozen lakes half a mile beneath Antarctic ice, volcanic heat vents in the ocean, bathed in sulfur, arsenic, life in caves never bathed with light of day, and life at depths, darkness and pressure of the sea. These organisms might all be suitable enough to live on choice distant planets. Mars might have gas-filled caves or underground pockets, perfect for all sorts of strange life. If extremophiles can, why not higher life forms? The water and rich organic compounds believed to be under the ice at Europa could have harvested millennia of incomprehensible evolution. If a habitable planet for humanity is discovered, it will be a time for humanity to unite and break down the walls of separatist religious oppression and perceptions of truth, reality, afterlife, and life in general. We must transcend to the stars perhaps. But before humanity can achieve such an awesome feat, we each must create a new path for ourselves. Where might this new path take us? I'm not sure, but it leads us away from self-deception, right here on Earth. In his book, Everything is Obvious, Duncan J. Watts explains how common sense fails us, how it has turned from almost instinct for our ancestors to a complicated web of social rules, norms and expectations of modern society. And what a myth we've created. While some common sense remains quite obvious, don't touch the hot stove. Some remains controversial. Many have transposed belief into their common sense schemas. When every answer and its opposite appears equally obvious, then something is wrong with the entire argument of obviousness. We invest much of our daily lives around common sense, these automatic linkages we make our perception of truth. I see much of this throughout society, culture, individuals and religion today. The obvious is within perspective at the social, spiritual, religious, and even logical levels. We have tools to sort out this self-deception that plagues humanity: studies of math, physics, chemistry, and astronomy. From history to softer social sciences, self-deception deforms the outcome or our knowledge through faulty use of authority, presumptions, ignorance and false perceptions. The more disciplined the study, though, like the ones I prioritized, the less room for intellectual dilemmas. Once we've hit biology, and animated the studies with social and human problems and ideals, we begin to retard the practice and pursuit of truth and knowledge. Biology is still a respectable field. It is also a useful tool to explore oneself, physical self and that of the life around and within you. But that is the turning point. Psychology is nearly all based off of perspective and the individual, but is still a valid science because it is founded on the same hypothesis and evidence principles as the others. However, common sense and precepts often get implanted. All of these tools are so inextricably tied to the spiritual aspects, which have little room for reason and logic. Yet, we must use these tools to further our understanding of spirit, the mystic, and the universe. The religious frequently assume understanding while denying proof of a higher calling to mankind. They have a ladder to climb, a life plan to the afterlife, and common sense via God will guide them there. It is discernibly surprising that beliefs can be more concrete in a number of people's minds than can evidence, proof, and hard sciences that are discovered via anti-deceit techniques. This reasonable flaw befalls our concept of truth in the justice system as well. The truth that one produces on the justice of a situation will have been distorted by the prior commitment to an unjust position. In short, injustice invites self-deception, unconsciousness, and inability to perceive reality, while justice has the opposite effect. Behavior that society deems evil, though most usually are, is due to a cultural boiling over a myth, religious concept of the human predicament, pride, power, false perceptions, untruths and the constant vibration of the anti-Evo. We are all contributing mankind's problems to different things, other people and conflicting subjects, particularly those that are out of our control and we lack complete knowledge of. Marcel Proust wrote, "In exchange for what our imagination leads us to expect and which we vainly give ourselves so much trouble to try to discover, life gives us something which we were very far from imagining. To compare, we prioritize our imagination, expectations, and illusions of control above truth, reality, proofs, study, evidence, and rigorous experimentation. I challenge the idea of a life plan. Not entirely, of course. Without a plan, you might reach the top of the ladder and realize that you have your ladder against the wrong wall. The sooner personal goals are identified the better, but there is merit in climbing for its own sake. You can never tell what you'll see from the top. I believe a good way to expand your imagination and expectations without limiting yourself or leaving yourself vulnerable is to be a passive and/or active being, depending on context. A great way to do this is to consciously decide with logic and reason, trial and error, and even with your heart and feelings what best suits you in your present situation, but also while holding in mind the consequences to the future. Hinduism and Buddhism have both captured a cosmic chord unlike any other major revealed religion. When the Hindu found that different people aimed at and achieved God realization in different ways, he generously recognized them all and justified their place in the course of history. On the same token, Buddhism is not a belief system or an abstract philosophy. It is a way of life, with teachings on how to behave and qualities to cultivate. Pema Chodron said. One of powerful teachings of the Buddhist tradition is that as long as you are wishing for things to change, they never will. As long as you have an orientation towards the future, you can never just relax into what you already have or already are. I can conclusively relate to the endless wheel of rebirth, not through reincarnation, but as a human dilemma. We are cycling through the same beliefs, schemas, ideas, pain, confusion, motivation, questions and answers that our great ancestors did when they initiated religion. This familiarity breeds comfort, but we may be getting too comfortable in a dying cultural, spiritual and ecological world. The pro-evo principle that I originally mentioned is the basis for my morality, and my means to achieve that which I focus on. If I am only engaged in life-promoting activities and gestures, then my life and all those around me will be much richer and fulfilling. On the other hand, anti-evo actions will only hinder my achievements and that of humanity as a whole. As the Bible says in Romans 13:10, love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore love is the fulfillment of the law.